Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zimbabwe is a failed state. One of the main reasons why we are a failed state is that we've been stuck with this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical Zanu PF dictatorship ever since the country's independence in 1980. 45 years and counting. And one of the groups that has helped Zanu PF stay in power is the war veterans. The regime has cultivated this aura around war veterans that they have the veto on who rules Zimbabwe. Zanu PF has encouraged war veterans, be they in the army, the police, the CIO, prison services, in government itself, and in all various sectors of society, to promote this idea that Zanu PF is the only government fit to rule the country, and they, the war veterans, have the veto in that business. This is why we have had videos like this.
We wish to make it very clear to all Zimbabwean citizens that the security organization will only stand in support of those political leaders that will pursue Zimbabwe's value, traditions, belief, for which thousands of lives were lost in pursuit of Zimbabwe's hard-won independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the national interest. To this end, let it be known that the highest office on the land is a straitjacket, whose occupant is expected to observe the objectives of the liberation struggle. We will therefore not accept, let alone support or salute anyone with a different agenda that threatens the very existence of our sovereignty, our country, and our people.
The most broad and clear definition of sovereignty is that the people, the ordinary citizens, are the sole mandate, are the only ones who give the mandate to govern the country. And that mandate is obtained in a free, fair, and credible election. The general shouldn't have known that. Of course he knew that. What you are saying here is, if the people should make the mistake of electing somebody outside Zanu PF, they will not accept him. They were clearly brainwashed by Zanu PF. Because Zanu PF had always sold this idea that opposition leaders were there inspired by outsiders. They were seeking regime change, as if the democratic explanation, the democratic expression of the people in a free, fair, and credible election was there was something illegal in that. More recently, we had another general.
Zanu PF itatonga kusika matonge ameranya. Muchita musingadi. Ameni. Apa ndakutaura sakomanda ami. Shashandisa inonzi command 40. Yes. Yeah. Yaya masapuku wariti wemusanga chazvigadzira. Amen. Zanu PF. Amberina idim nangagwa. Pasi nemandu. Security forces saka PC mkuru wemaudondini.
If the army commanders would make such an outrageous pronouncement, one can only imagine what those below them are expected to do. The war veterans, particularly those who had been demobilized soon after independence or are in retirement, have always been Zanu PF's foot soldiers. Every time there are elections or the party wants some mischief done, there's always gone to the war veterans, bribe them, and tell them what dirty business the party wanted done. And the war veterans have always done it. Mnangagwa, of all people, will know that. And one of the outstanding times when they did that was during the electoral coup of 2008. Here is Mnangagwa himself boasting about it, and the war veteran leader at the time making his moves.
2008 patakaita ma-elections pakaposa papinda Tsvangirai ndandiri election agent ya president. Ma-results abuda tiri party headquarters vamutasa vanga vari secretary vedu ve-administration vamutasa muripi yafona ndiri kwarusapi komogwenda kwarusapi seka ma-results achibuda kudai vanga aiwa zvako izvo Mnangagwa ndezvo zvako endaenda kumusha ofisi vanga vabisa zvinhu zvavo zvose watofunga kuti Zanu yadini yaparara. President ofona zvakamira sei kati ndomamira zvakaita takatodini kateda sei manje mama ndikati abvudzai baba nditaurira baba gadzirai politburo cabinet musarangarira zvimwe zvinhu gadzirai chi cabinet asina kuda kuti muzive kuti 2008 ma-results abuda vamutasa vakatiza.
As a country we face a generational transition. Vana vesa vari kuma below 35, they are crying out for help. The country is in a mess. Arusurufaro. We know we are inheriting a mess. We know this country has been left with nothing.
I'm assuring you that starting from tomorrow, you'll see a different nation from what you have seen or read on the news about these results and everything. Where we are going ahead there, the situation will be very different. What we said to our people, they could not see with their own eyes. We are going to act as we see it fit. We are prepared to go the whole distance
The truth is, the war veterans were the foot soldiers that year. It's believed that millions of Zimbabweans were internally displaced during that runoff, the 3 months runoff in 2008. Hundreds of thousands had their properties destroyed, beaten, and or raped. And 500 were murdered in cold blood. So the war veterans, Zanu PF has always relied on them to do its own dirty work. Not that they're the only ones to be bribed, mind you. Bribing has become almost a standard thing. If you look at 2023 elections, Mnangagwa must have spent at least $5 billion in those elections, from buying chicken and chips for Povo, who were passed from one rally to another, to buying cars and motorcycles for chiefs and headmen right across the country. Church leaders, they received cars depending on their perceived influence. Some received cars, some got cars and even farms. MPs and senators received US 40,000. It was called a housing loan. And the same housing loans were extended to other senior civil servants and other influential members in society. Judges received 400,000 US dollars. Deputy ministers, 230,000 US dollars. Ministers themselves, $500,000 US dollars. And the war veterans, some of the leaders received cars, others tokens in various forms. This has been standard. And in the case of the war veterans, they all did their dirty work for Zanu PF. Everyone knows that 2023 elections were rigged. And they would have been going out in the villages, telling the electorate, particularly in the rural areas, that if Zanu PF, if they don't vote for Zanu PF, there'll be trouble. Judges, they turned a blind eye to the flawed electoral process. The law says, for example, there should be a verified voters roll. All the judges who presided over the nomination on nomination day knew there was no verified voters roll, but they turned a blind eye to it. The 400,000 US dollars housing loan had done the trick. So this video of all veterans rejecting Mnangagwa's bribes is a completely new development in Zimbabwe. This is the first time ever in Zimbabwe's history that the war veterans or any other group has turned around and actually rejected the Zanu PF bribe. Let's just listen to the video.
Varwi vehondo yerusununguko mawo veterans varamba zvinhu zvavakapiwa nehurumende izvo zvinosanganisira zvibhorani, masolar powered boreholes nedzimba, vachiti havakwanise kunyaradzwa neupfumi kana kutengwa nemari sezvo kunenge kwatove kutengesa nyika.
But even if their intention was noble, why now targeting war veterans? Why us? Why us alone? How about the people who have put you in power? Coming up with, no, we are offering all veterans 1.5 million and we are building them structures. It's a mockery. It is ordinary citizens. What are you doing for them? Why would you come to us? So we would rather be poor with the majority of citizens. We are looking at a week or two. Surely the pressure should be on.
Mhuri yeZimbabwe kusangana zvakare panonzi pano patinokupakurirai dzese dziri kupisa pasocial media nemunyika yedu yeZimbabwe kana iri first time yenyu kuvawo pa.
That is truly shocking for a regime that is used to bribing and getting what it wants. This really must come as a shock. There's no denying that this is a bribe. No one can deny it. I think what makes this bribe particularly untenable is that these people are being bribed to endorse something that they know is a lie. Mnangagwa has been pushing this idea that you should be allowed to stay in power because he was delivering Vision 2030. His competence was so unique that he had managed to revive Zimbabwe's collapsed economy, and now the country was heading to become an upper middle income country. In this case here, in 5 years. The truth of the matter is that was such an outrage. It makes a mockery of anyone who would stand up and defend that. Because the evidence on the ground shows that nothing the economy is not recovered. Basic services like health and education have all but collapsed. The country is barely managing to supply clean running waters in the urban centers. The infrastructure of the country is in tatters. Even some of the big main roads, like the Bulawayo or to Victoria Falls, they've got potholes. So this whole idea that Mnangagwa is so competent, he's delivering this Vision 2030 is just nonsense. And I think that is what the war veterans are rejecting. Indeed, that is what they are rejecting. Because this whole issue has come to the head ever since one of the war veterans, Blessed Geza, denounced Mnangagwa and dismissed this Vision 2030 as bullshit and demanded that Mnangagwa should resign. The whole point of coming up with all these projects for war veterans was to buy their support, was to buy them into this whole idea that Mnangagwa is such a competent leader and he is delivering the Vision 2030. Now that Vision 2030 has been exposed as a lie, it really is near impossible to try to pretend that that is real. The other day, I compared Mnangagwa with his Vision 2030 with the emperor in The Naked Emperor, a fairy tale in which the emperor was vain and pompous and pretended he was wearing a golden gown when in reality he was naked. But once the small boy had exposed him as naked, everybody started laughing. This is where we are with Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa cannot change the reality on the ground, pretend that he's delivering this Vision 2030, when in reality the country is descending deeper and deeper into this political and economic hell on earth. I am impressed by the war veterans. I think those who have taken the courage to finally stand up to the regime and say no should be saluted. It is a pity that it has taken 45 years for the war veterans to realize that Zanu PF was using them to push their own selfish agenda, which was contrary to what the nation had risked lives in the fight for independence. Let's clearly define what is it we want. What we want is the restoration of all Zimbabweans' fundamental freedoms and human rights, including the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. There should be no one . who can ever claim that they have the divine right to rule the country. And by the same token, no one should believe that they have the veto on who rules the country. The kind of statements that we had from some of our army commanders, senior police officers, CIO, is the language of somebody who has been absolutely brainwashed into endorsing this idiotic idea that Zanu PF ichatonga kusvika madhonga amera nyanga. On what basis? We want to restore the rights and dignity of all Zimbabweans. This is what the freedom, the fight for independence was all about. I am proud of those war veterans who are genuinely seeing the light, who firmly now believe that the system we have has failed. There are some who, as we know, are fighting to remove Mnangagwa because they want to replace him with Chiwenga. I have nothing against Chiwenga, but he must win the majority votes in a free, fair, and credible election. The idea that somebody who has got the veto will impose him on the nation is an outrage. We cannot keep on maintaining this foolishness of believing that Zanu PF has the divine right to rule. And so the best we can expect is to replace one dictator with another. We want to end this cursed system of rigged elections and bad governance. And the only sure way of doing that is restoring the rights and freedoms of all the citizens. Every Zimbabwean has the right to a meaningful say in the governance of the country. No one, even those who were carrying the guns, have the right, the veto on who should govern the country. That principle must be understood. No one is above the law. That is what we are talking about here. Thank you very much again to the war veterans who really have finally seen the light. And I hope we'll stand firm from now on and demand that we have meaningful change in the country that affects all Zimbabweans and not just a select few. Zanu PF is coming up with these bribes, building houses for war veterans, sinking boreholes for them. The ordinary people, ordinary Zimbabweans, Don't want the regime to do that for them. They can do it for themselves. The one thing the ordinary Zimbabweans have been crying for is title deeds. Even those few square meters of land on which their grass-thatched hut stands. Because give them title deeds, it'll give them the confidence to invest in a better housing structure, to dig wells, to plant fruit trees, and develop that piece of land, knowing fully well that if they should want to leave, they can sell it as a going concern. Zanu PF has refused to give those people title deeds for the same reason that Ian Smith refused to give blacks in the rural area title deeds. He feared that if you give these people property rights and thus economically empower them, the next thing they would want is political empowerment. And it is for the same reason that Zanu PF is holding back on title deeds on land. This is the one property that will mean something to the ordinary rural voter out there. And one can only hope that this issue will be addressed and resolved in this generation. The people have waited now 45 years. They deserve more. They deserve better. It is their land as much as it is the ruling elite's land. Give them title deeds. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.